Welcome back to another episode of Bedtime with Tomi. This evening we'll be reading chapter 24, David's Point of View. A few days later, the Range Rover stopped in front of number 120 Savile Road in London's Mayfair district. It was a narrow street lined with elegant, stately, Georgian and Edwardian storefronts. This is where the best tailors and shoemakers in the UK were located. Mayfair was rich in history. "I'm sharing something with you that hardly anyone knows about me," David confessed, his face flushing with anticipation. "I'll explain more when we get inside." Before Clara could ask another question, he exited the car. He was about to open himself up to her. If she didn't think that the art of handcrafting shoes was interesting, he was done for. They entered one of the oldest shops on the street. Its front window displayed a vintage leather men's traveling case, shoes, and a black top hat. He pulled open the door, and a bell chimed. The clerk bounded out of his seat at the excitement of potential customers. When he discovered it was David, his expression changed from hopeful to disappointed. "Welcome round, Leeds," he greeted. David half-heartedly waved back, keeping his attention on Clara. He watched as her eyes raked the wall-to-wall models of men's dress shoes in various shapes, colors, sizes, and designs. "There are so many different shoes," she mused. "The workshop is this way." David led Clara behind the hunter green curtains near the register, through the storage room. He slowed his pace so she could keep up with him, feeling a mixture of excitement, terror, and nervousness. "Here goes nothing." In the back of the storage room, a bookshelf built into the wall was open to reveal a hidden staircase. Very Sherlock. "It is, isn't it?" He cocked his head to the side. "I had never made the connection before." "Are you some secret agent?" "Not exactly." He rubbed the back of his neck. George will ring you when we're ready to leave." "Right you are, Leeds." George winked. "Have fun." He left them to their own devices. David assisted Clara down the 5 steps into the secret workroom and settled her on the well-worn cognac-colored sofa. The air smelled of leather, earth, and beeswax. He remained standing, a hand on his head. The room was just how he'd left it a few days ago. It was an orchestra of organized clutter. There were wooden workbenches housing handcrafting tools, blocks of wood, and scraps of tracing paper with different elongated shapes. Near the back wall were rows of meticulously arranged leathers and an array of earthy tones. The machinery the shop used for stitching the shoes together was up one level. When it was quiet, he could sometimes hear the sound of it humming to life. You've been extremely patient with me. I appreciate it. Now you can ask whatever you want to know." "So, just a wild guess, but do you make your own shoes?" Clara said with a hint of playfulness in her voice. A grin crept across David's face. "I do." Clara's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "This is so fascinating. I'll be the first to admit I know next to nothing about how shoes are made, but I have a million questions." David relaxed, and his smile grew even wider as relief flooded his body. Clara was genuinely interested in his hobby. "Honestly, I'm relieved to hear you say that you find shoemaking fascinating and not boring." "It's anything but boring." Clara shifted her position and stretched her legs over the sofa. "Remember, I'm a ballerina who depends on handmade shoes for a living. I've always been curious about how they're created." David moved to his personal espresso machine and made the 2 of them cappuccinos. He handed Clara one and pulled out a chair from behind the desk. "I guess start at the beginning. What's the first thing you do when you're making a pair of shoes?" Clara sipped her cappuccino. "Everything starts with tracing a foot and figuring out how it works." "What do you mean?" David moved close to her. "It might be easier to show you." An idea was forming in the back of his mind. "Would you mind if I took a look at your foot?" Clara wrinkled her nose. "My feet are probably the most unattractive things you'll see. Dancers have the worst feet in the world." David chuckled. "I've seen my share of interesting feet. Don't say I didn't warn you." She reluctantly shifted so her casted leg remained on the couch while her good foot was accessible. David knelt down and carefully removed Clara's left shoe. as if performing a modern-day Cinderella moment. It felt intimate. Slowly and methodically, he examined her foot, appreciating the intricacies of the fascinating part of the human body. It's ugly, isn't it? Clara's gaze drifted toward her own foot. At least it's not as red and angry as it usually is. Not dancing has given my blisters a chance to heal. I don't think they're bad looking at all. You have a high instep, David whispered, his eyes tracing the graceful arc of her arch. There's a lot of muscle where your ankle and foot come together. It's swollen. I can tell it's been compensating for your injury. His hand brushed the tender of the skin of the budding area near the big toe. Your toe shoes don't fit your foot shape properly. They're too narrow. You can tell all that just from a 30-second evaluation. It's elementary, my dear Clara. It's not rocket science. It's deduction with a dash of charisma. She sniggered. I have one more trick up my sleeve, too. David retrieved Clara's discarded shoe and turned it over to reveal the tread. Using my mad detective skills, I can see that the contrary to most people, you walk with your feet turned out. You walk toe to heel more than you do heel to toe. And what does that leave you to conclude? She challenged. That right in front of me, I have a ballerina. Clara's eyes met his. The tension was building between them. His suit was suddenly uncomfortable and constricting. He didn't know how much longer he'd be able to maintain his composure around her. He jumped to his feet and walked over to his desk, grabbing the first thing he could. He started to ramble the first thoughts that popped into his mind. Once we have the pattern, we can make the last, which is like a mannequin's foot. Last, ensure that the shoe is crafted to just the right shape and specifications for the wearer. If everything goes according to plan, a bespoke shoe takes about 6 to 8 months to craft. But if I'm making something for myself, I can get it done in about 3 months. David? He froze in his tracks. He hadn't realized he'd walked several laps around the sofa. Clara covered her mouth with her hand, holding in laughter. Do you have any shoes that you've made down here? He bumped into a rolling chair, sending several papers flying to the ground. He ignored them and tossed the last onto the workbench with a thud, reaching for the latest project. Here. Her lips are so rosy pink, just the sparkly tutu she danced in. Just like the sparkly tutu she danced in. He pictured himself taking her in his arms and kissing them. They are unbelievable. I can't believe you made these. She carefully examined the stitching. He dug his fingers into the palm of his hand, then realized Clara had said something. Can you repeat that? I was just wondering if you'd ever considered making shoes for others. I have some plans in the works to launch an affordable collection of just shoes under the Leeds name sometime in the next year. I'm hoping the income will fund the Waleed's Trust. Clara interrupted him. Waleed's Trust? Focus. He casually leaned against the arm of the sofa. It's a name for the charitable foundation Eddie and I are co-founding. The names are a play on our titles, Wales and Leeds. He hesitated. We'll be making an announcement next month. Our first order of business is going to be to offer art and music classes for children in a hospital. When I was in America, I secured the last big donor we needed to make the program happen. David, Clara gazed at him, her eyes filling with admiration. That's amazing. I can see just how passionate you are about this. Eddie will be the public face of the Waleed's Trust. We discussed it at length over the weekend. He's ready to shine a spotlight on the issues that matter and throw himself wholeheartedly into the cause. She raised an eyebrow. And what about you? I bet you've done all the legwork. Don't you want some recognition? David shook his head. No, I don't need it. The most important thing to me now is that the kids know I'm involved, and that's satisfaction enough. You're an amazing man, David. Clara reached out toward him, her fingers gently gripping his arms. His pulse increased and his throat grew dry. Clara, I don't know if this is such a good idea. I disagree, Detective. Her hazel eyes were wide. Just when I start to talk myself out of the fact that I'm falling for you, you have to go and do something like this. Clara's eyelids fluttered. Stop talking and kiss me already. David didn't need to be told twice. He lowered himself onto the couch next to her, drawn by an irresistible force that had been building for far too long. His fingers traced the curve of her lips, gently sweeping a lock of hair behind her ears. "You are so beautiful, Claire Bear," he whispered. Their lips brushed against each other, tentative at first, then with a growing intensity that mirrored the emotions they both held long in check. It was sweet and tender collision, like a hydrangea flower swaying to and fro in a warm spring breeze. They wrapped their arms around each other, drawing themselves closer still. Their mouths moved in harmony, performing their own delicate dance. Time seemed to stand still as they savored the moment. Claire eventually pulled back, her chest rising and falling with the shared breaths between them. "I've been wanting to kiss you for so long." David's voice came out rough. "Don't stop." With a soft, affectionate smile, he shifted Clara so she was on her lap, careful not to disturb her guest. He showered her with more kisses, each one growing more intense than the last. By the end of the third round of kisses, their lips were swollen, a testament to the passion they had ignited between them. "I'm the luckiest bloke alive." So that was the end of chapter 24. And once again, I apologize for blundering some of the words. It's hard. I don't have an excuse for that one. I do want to address a couple quick little fun facts here. The first is David's love for shoemaking. I was lucky enough to step into one of the shops in Savile Row a few years ago. I think it was maybe 2018 or 2019, right before the pandemic. And it was fascinating to see how people create dress shoes. And it's the same as it's been for hundreds, maybe not 100 years, but maybe the last 100 or 150 years. They use very similar techniques in how they craft shoes. If you'd like to check that out, Kirby Allison is one of my favorite YouTube channels to watch for the research of this. It's definitely worth checking out. He makes it pretty interesting, and he also visits quite a few tailors on Savile Road to discuss how suits are made. You'll see him visit, I think the shop is called Gaziano Girling, quite a few times. The second thing in here is the cheesy name for the trust that David comes up with, Waleed's. At the time I couldn't think of a better name for the foundation. I was literally trying to merge the names together or just brainstorm, and Waleed's was the best I could do. Wales and Leeds. I thought it sounded better than Leeds and Wales reversed, so that's why it sounds cheesy, because it is. And lastly is about Clara's feet. There are some fascinating videos and photos about dancers talking about their feet, and they will dub them, as I put in here, the most unattractive part of their body. And that's because if you think about it, all of the force that they use is centered on those big toe and the second, third toes. The fourth and fifth toes don't normally touch the ground, but with all that pressure, you get quite a few bruised toenails, ingrown toenails, bunions, hammer toes, you name it, it happens. And maybe I'll share a pointe shoe with you sometime, showing you just how the different widths and different specifications of the shoe, if they're not fit exactly right, they can really do some serious damage. If they're fit correctly, they should not cause any pain. I mean, there's always some discomfort, but there shouldn't be pain. Josephine Lee of the Pointe Shop has some great videos on pointe shoe fitting, as does Riley Weber, I think, or is it Riley Thomas? I'll have to double check, but I will try to leave a link in the description box down below. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to leave them in the comments. I always like discussing things, and I will see you guys next time for another chapter.